Okay, guys, you guys are in for a real treat this afternoon. My guest this afternoon, Bobby Rydell, is a music icon. From his early days growing up in South Philadelphia to the top of the Billboard charts, all the way to the bright lights of Hollywood, his recording career earned him 34 top 100 hits, including Kissin' Time and Wild One, to name a few, placing him in the top 5 artists of his era. During his 6 decades in show business, he has also appeared on television shows like The Red Skelton Show, The Danny Thomas Show, The Jack Benny Show, they're all shows, The Joey Bishop Show, and The George Burns Show, to name a few. He was also a regular on The Milton Berle Show, as well as a starring role in the 1963 comedy classic Bye Bye Birdie, opposite the gorgeous Anne Margaret. My goodness, some guys get all the luck. If that wasn't enough, Bobby has also written an amazing book about his life called Bobby Rydell, Teen Idol on the Rocks, A Tale of Second Chances, which has gotten hundreds of 5-star reviews on Amazon. It's such an honor to have this gentleman on the show this afternoon, American icon and show business giant, Mr. Bobby Rydell. Bobby, thank you for taking the time this afternoon.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thank you ever so much.
Whew, that was I gotta take a breath. Oh, my mamma mia. Anyway, Bobby, I want to start off early in your career. Your dad takes you to the Earl Theater when you were about 5 or 6 years old. Tell my audience a little bit what the Earl Theater was back then and who played there.
Oh, God, just about everybody. At that particular time, I was 5 years old, so that was what, 1947,
48?
No, wait a minute, it was more than whatever. But anyway, I mean, everybody worked there, and my father always loved big bands. And he wanted to introduce me at a very early age to big band music. He took me for a matinee performance with the Benny Goodman Orchestra. And I was enthralled. I was enthralled by the music, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, 5 saxophones, piano, bass, drums, rhythm, guitar. But there was one guy in the band, I said, I don't know who he is, Daddy, but I want to be him. And that was Gene Krupa, who was the original drummer for the Benny Goodman Band. And I started playing drums when I was 5 years old because my dad took me to see the Benny Goodman Orchestra.
Wow. Gene Krupa, Sal Mineo, I believe, played him.
That's correct. That's right. He played Gene Krupa's life. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 1959. Yeah, wow, amazing. So you obviously, people know you. You're a great singer, but you started, like you say, you started off as a drummer.
Yeah, well, basically, I started out, by playing drums because I saw Gene Krupa, and my dad, he lost a finger in work. This is, quite a few years later, and he got a bonus, and I think I was about maybe 12 or 13 years old, and he bought me my really first set of really good drums. They were William F. Ludwig, WFL. But earlier, when I was like 7, 8 years old, my dad used to take me around to nightclubs and ask the club owner, is it okay if my son got up and, to sing a couple of songs and doing some impersonations? So I'm 7 years old, I sing a song, I do impersonations, and people applauded. And I would say, my God, all I have to do is do this and they do that. What a wonderful feeling, at 7 years old. But basically, that really kind of like got me ready for what things were going to happen later on in my life. It was more or less like a vaudeville for me back then. Yeah.
So Bobby, in 1950, you win a talent show on the Paul Whiteman TV Teen Club.
Correct.
You're like an 8-year-old kid. I mean,
I think I was 10 at the time, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, years ago, Sammy Davis Jr., God rest his soul, who I was very friendly with, he recorded a record of the old tune Because of You. On one side, he did singers doing actors, and the other side, he did actors doing singers. So what I did on the Paul Whiteman TVT Club was actors doing singers. And I was like, James Cagney and Jerry Lewis and Humphrey Bogart and Edward G. Robinson singing to the tune of Because of You. And I won on the show, and I became one of the regulars on the show of the Paul Whiteman TV Club. And then the show went off the air when I was about 11 and a half years old. So I was out of the business. I had no job at 11 years old.
So, we're talking like you're 11 years old, so 42, what's that, 53? I did 6 years of high school, Bobby, so please forgive me. My math is not good. So,
you're right. It was 1953, correct.
So for my audience out there, American Bandstand at this time is like the show.
Yeah, for sure.
So now, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, did Dick Clark turn some of your songs down?
Yeah, absolutely. I recorded at that time for Cameo, which later became Cameo Parkway, and Bernie Lowe, who was the president of the company. I recorded 3 records, and he would take the acetates, the dubs, to play to Dick. And my first 3 records that I recorded for Cameo, Dick said, no. The last song that Bernie Lowe took to Dick Clark was my first hit record. And Bernie took the acetate, and Dick Clark dropped the needle on the record, and you heard boom, 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 that, Dick said, that's a hit. Wow. And from there, I was on American Bandstand, and as they say, the rest of it is all history.
Right. We're talking 1959. You're about 17 years old. You got a huge song called "Kissin' Time," and you get on Bandstand. Your career skyrockets. And the funny thing is, you're still living at home, Bobby. I mean, I would feel so bad for the mailman who got to deliver all the fan mail.
Oh my God, that's for sure. That is for sure, Mike. Yeah, I used to get a lot of fan mail, and to this day, every week, every day we get, not only here in the States, but I'm talking about, in Europe, Italy, Portugal, London, you name it. People are sending, to sign pictures. From back in 59 and the early 60s, for crying out loud.
I think you've been to Australia so many times. I think they're going to name a zoo after you.
Yeah, it's called the Rydell Zoo.
Yeah. Bobby, I tried to get into your head at that time as a teenage kid. How do you process all this fame, sudden fame?
Like I said earlier, when my dad took me to nightclubs when I was 7, 8 years old, that kind of got me ready for things that were going to happen later on in my life. And like I said earlier, it became like my vaudeville. It got me ready for things that were going to happen later on in my career.
Your name, of course, Robert Luis, help me out, Ricky Ardelli?
Roberto Luigi Rydell. Mezzo abruzzese e mezzo marchigiano.
Io sono veronese, mio padre.
Veronese.
What's that?
Where are your people from, Mike?
Avellino.
Okay. See, my people were from Abruzzi and Marchi.
Oh wow! My in-laws are from Abruzzi. My parents are both from Avellino. So
Avellino,
first generation. So when you see, obviously I came on a long. I was born a lot longer after you were huge, but people like you, the Frankie Avalons, the Fabians of the world, they inspired. You don't know this, but they inspired tons and tons of Italian Americans to get into show business.
Well, you just look at South Philadelphia in general. We had people like, Mario Lanza, Al Martino, Buddy Greco, myself, and Avalon, and Fabian, and James Darren, whose real name is Ercolani. South Philadelphia was Probi Italiano.
Probi Italiano,
Probi Italiano, yeah.
What's the saying, Bobby? There's a saying, if you drink, I think you said it, if you drink out of a faucet. Yeah.
Well, the question always was, why were there so many people, talented people that came out of South Philadelphia? And I used to say, Well, there was a water trough on Nathan Dickinson, and if you drank out of it, you became a singer. If you put your feet in it, you became a dancer. If you drank out of it and put your feet in it, you became a song and dance man. I don't know why the hell so many people came out of South Philadelphia, but it was just, something, it was like a wig thing. Okay, there was a water trough on Nathan Dickinson.
Yes, very talented town. So how do you go from, Luis to Bobby Rydell? Who gave you the name Bobby Rydell?
My dad came up with Rydell because when I was in Catholic school, the nuns used to call me Master Ryderelli, Master Rydelli. They could never pronounce Rydell for some odd reason, so my dad came up with Rydell. They always said that Paul Whiteman came up with Rydell because he couldn't pronounce Rydell, but that's not true.
Oh. I never knew that. You really can't find anything on the internet who named it, but I did see the Paul Whiteman. You are right. Bobby, you're about, 19, maybe 20, and I'm trying to set this up for my audience. You walk into the Copa. You're a 19-year-old kid. You just had kissing time. Okay, maybe you can take it from there. When you're 19, you walk into the Copa.
Oh, well, that's a long story. My dad and my manager, whose name was Frankie Day at the time, his real Italian name was Francesco Cocchi. And I was out in New York doing German TV. So my dad and my manager went to the Copa to see Joe E. Lewis, comedian. And I walk into the club, and I'm thinking I'm going to join my dad and my manager, Frank, and one of the waiters, Carmine. He says, Bobby, he said, would you like to sit with Frank? And I think he's talking about my manager. I said, don't worry, Carmine. I said, I'll just join my dad. He said, Bobby, Frank. I said, he's in the room? He said, yeah, he came in to see Jerry Lewis. Would you want to sit with him? I said, oh, my God, no. I was 19 years old. So I've adored Sinatra since I was 10 years old. I was listening to the old man since I was 10. And to make a long story short, he leaves the club, and I go upstairs to the lounge to say goodnight to the owner, Jules Padell, who I called Uncle Julie. And through the kitchen doors comes Sinatra. And I said, Uncle Julie, all I want to do is shake his hand. You want to meet Frank? He had that kind of a voice, So Sinatra was sitting at a table with Sammy Kahn, Jimmy Van Heusen, and two marvelous lyricists, songwriters.
Right.
Richard Conte and Joe DiMaggio.
Oh.
And Frank. So we walk up to the table, and Jules Bedell hits Sinatra on the shoulder, and he says, Frank, I want you to meet the kid. And Sinatra stood up with those blue eyes. He put out his right hand. He said, how you doing, Robert? He called me Robert. I said, fine, Mr. S. How are you? He says, I'm wonderful. Would you care to join us? Well, needless to say, I sat down, and there I am with, giants of the industry. Giants. And like we say in Italian, I was like a Mamaluke. I didn't say two words. I was horse-struck. And Sinatra turned to me and he said, what do you drink, Robert? And I said, Coke. I figured if I said such a word, I get smacked in the face. But, Sinatra was absolutely wonderful. I got a picture with him under his left or right arm. He's got my album, Rydell at the Copa, and he signs it, to Bobby, best always your friend, Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did he ever give you any advice? Did you guys get into it with the breathing technique?
No, but I kind of like, I listened to him for so long. And, he, excuse me, when he was with Dorsey, when he was with the Tommy Dorsey band, Tommy Dorsey used to do a thing. I forget exactly what they call it. Something like, I forget, something about breathing where...
Intake, outtake.
Go ahead, what?
Intake, outtake, or something like, I don't know, something like
that. Well, yeah, basically that's what it was, where Dorsey would play, like out of the, let's say, the right side of his chops, and while he was playing a note, he would inhale, and to keep, that note sustained, where, that's where, if you ever listen to Sinatra, how he would sustain a particular, melody and one of the greatest songs he ever recorded, where he does Old Man River. And he does a thing on Old Man River where he hits a note, and then he goes all the way down low, and he's still sustaining. He's still, breathing, and he comes up again. And this was all from, he learned that all from Tommy Dorsey.
Wow. Yeah, it is a it is an instrument. Obviously
For sure,
like
absolutely, it's an instrument. Yeah,
like you see like an opera singer, like a Pavarotti sing, and you see it. It's on full display. It's amazing to just watch and mind blowing at times. Bobby, in 1959, you said we talked about Kissing Time. Do you remember the first time as a kid you heard the song on the radio?
Yeah, I was driving to New York City with my manager, Frankie Day, and we're on the Jersey Turnpike heading to New York, and we're in the vicinity where we can turn on to WABC radio. And Bruce Morrow was on there at the time, and he said, here's a young kid with his brand new record. Looks like it's going to be a big hit for him. Here's Bobby Rydell with Kissing Time. And I went, oh, my God. That's the first time I heard, first time I heard myself over the air,
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, Cousin Bruce, he's back on AM 770.
Yeah. He's back on WABC, I believe.
Yeah, WABC. Yeah, he's on there. Episcopo's on there. Tony Orlando's on there.
Oh, I just talked to Joe. We just did a thing. Joe and I are dear friends, and he's got that show with Sinatra now.
Oh yeah, on Sunday nights.
Yeah, right. So it was, I think, last week. We did an interview, and Joe wanted me to tell stories about meeting the old man, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I've known Joe, oh my God, for years now, and he's a very, very dear friend.
Yeah, he does a great job. Joe, if you're listening, come on the show. Will you please, Paisan? Why yo? Come on. Fammi up piacere. Bobby, Frank Sinatra, he said that, from his first performance to for the rest of his career, every time he went on stage, there was always some type of anxiety or nervousness. Do you got to you got to know the lyrics, you got to hit the notes, you got to be on par with the band, with the orchestra. I mean, do you feel that when you go on stage? Or
absolutely, absolutely. To this day, there's always that little bit of nervousness before you hit the lights, you hit the boards, and you go on to do your first song. So when I'm backstage, I'm very, very quiet. Very quiet. I don't really talk to too many people. I'm just trying to be, in myself and get ready for, what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 minutes prior to me going on stage. But, once you go on and you hit the boards and the lights hit you and the band is cooking, everything goes away and then you're fine.
Amazing. Bobby, your second hit was We Got Love, written by Bernie Lowe and Cal Mann. I believe it was 59. Could be wrong.
Either 59 or early 60, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the progression of your career. Obviously, your American Bandstand. Everybody's starting to know, hey, who's this kid up here with these shaking the hips and the nice suit and tie with that pompadour? I mean, this kid's doing really well. I mean, you're hitting your stride.
Well, everything that I recorded, most of the songs that I recorded with Cameo, which later became Cameo Parkway, most of the stuff was written by Mann and Cal Mann and Lowe, Bernie Lowe and Cal Mann. And Dave Apple, who was the arranger for most of the songs that I recorded for Cameo, so they were a trio, Bernie Lowe, Cal Mann, and Dave Apple. And speaking about my second hit record, We Got Love, we did it at Bell Sound Studios in New York. And we went to Bell Sound for like 2 days in a row to re-record We Got Love because Bernie Lowe wasn't happy with what happened on the first day. He was always concerned about the bass sound because back at that time we weren't using electric bass. It was upright. It was a regular standard upright bass. And when you keep listening and listening and listening, you kind of get like all kind of screwed up because you really don't know what is really going on. Anyway, to make a long story short, the recording of We Got Love was the second recording of the first day. But so what I'm saying is we recorded the first day, we went in the second day, re-recorded. You go back and you listen to it, and he released the second take from the first day.
He's made a comment saying, nowadays you walk in, there's a laptop in front of you. So
well, that's for sure. I mean, today you can go into a studio, and I don't care if you're flat, sharp, they fix you. They fix you.
Right.
Back then, it wasn't that way. You got what you got what you did in the studio at that particular time. If you were flat, you were sharp. That was it.
So you've taken millions and millions of pictures, Bobby, throughout your whole career. But there was a picture you'd wish you'd taken in the UK one night. Do you remember that?
In the UK?
Yeah, it was four or five guys.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I was working, and Margaret and I were there for the command performance of Bye Bye Birdie, and we were there with the royal family. While there, I recorded for Pi Records, and I recorded my third million seller, which was Forget Him. And I was on tour with a young lady by the name of Helen Shapiro, who was a very, very fine singer in the UK. And we were in the bus, we were traveling at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, going to the next city in the UK. And there was a car in front of us, and Helen Shapiro said, "They're the Beatles." Well, this is 1963. Now, my drummer and I were looking around the bus for cheebages and cockroaches, and what the hell are the Beatles? What is she talking about? And so the car stops in front of us, the bus stops, and the four guys come on. Now, of course, they knew me. They knew Bobby Rydell, they knew all my hit records, so on and so forth. And, I met them, and they were, really nice guys. And I figured, well, they're four guys, they're gigging somewhere, they're going to do a club date, whatever, And now I go back home. Now it's 1964, I'm watching Ed Sullivan. And there he introduces the Beatles. And I said, oh my God, I met those guys. And back then, we didn't have, what we have today, where you have the phones where you could take a picture. Nobody had a camera, so I could kick myself in the ass, because that would have been a great picture in the middle of the UK, what a great picture that would have been.
Wow! Yeah, amazing. Bobby, you mentioned Bye Bye Birdie. It was, I believe, in 1963. You played the role of Hugo Peabody with Dick Van Dyke, Janet Leigh, and Margaret in her prime. And then there's Robert Louis Rydell, a kid from South Philadelphia. I mean, was there ever a point you're saying, what? I don't want to swear, but what the hell am I doing here, and how did I get here?
Well, I mean, I went out and I screen tested with Anne Margaret for the director, George Sidney. And, we sang, she sang One Boy, One Special Boy, and sang One Girl, One Special Boy, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And George Sidney, who was a wonderful, wonderful man, he said, thank you ever so much for being in touch. I go back home to Philadelphia, my manager calls me 2 weeks later, said, you landed the part of Hugo Peabody. They want you, for Bye Bye Birdie. And so I go out to California, and evidently there was something that George Sidney saw between Anne Margaret and myself. There was some kind of magic between Anne and myself, where every day that I would go to the studio, my script would get, as far as dialogue would get bigger, and singing would get bigger, and the dancing and lots of rhythm number, because the part of Hugo Peabody in the Broadway show, he did nothing. Did nothing whatsoever. He didn't sing. He never had a line. He never danced. But like I said, Mr. Sidney saw some kind of magic between Anne Margaret and me. And, I'm not a movie guy. I'm not a movie actor, but if there's one picture to be involved with, Bye Bye Birdie is certainly the top of the list.
You're still close with Aunt Margaret.
Absolutely, yeah. We still talk. The last time I talked to her, not so while ago, when Roger Smith passed away, her husband. And I called her, I gave her my condolences, and she said, oh my God, Bobby, she said, thank you ever so much. But you remember how sick he was. I said, I really do, and I just wanted to call, give you my condolences. Thank you ever so much. But every time I call her or she calls me, she always says, how are you, Mr. Rydell? And I say, how you doing, Kim? Because in the movie, she was Kim McAfee.
Right.
So, we've been friends since 1963, for crying out loud.
Wow. Wow. Bobby, I want to ask you, obviously you're making Kissing Time, We Got Love, Wild One, big rock and roll hits. And then all of a sudden you flip it to Volare. What was the thought process of going into that? Totally different what you were doing.
Well, we went into RCA Studios in New York City to record an album. And on the date were three tunes, one being Volare, one being Sway, and one being Old Black Magic. Now, we never released the album, but I was coming off a song called Swingin' School. And we needed something after Swingin' School. So Bernie Lowe went back in the studio to listen to what we did in New York City. And he listened to the three tracks. Volare was one, Sway, and Old Black Magic. And we went into the studio. We added the girls, who were the Whoa-Who's and the Yeah-Yeahs and so on and so forth. And we put it out. And as luck would have it, it became my second million seller.
Amazing. Domenico Mondungo.
Modugno. Domenico Modugno. I met him, and I spent time with him in Italy at his villa in Rome. He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
Wow. Amazing. I mean, I know Dean Martin. Obviously, Dean Martin did it as well.
Oh, absolutely. It was Modugno, then Dean Martin, then me.
Yeah. Did Jerry Vale do it too? Oh, no.
The only thing I remember Jerry Vale doing was Mala Femina.
Mala Femina. Tuesday no Mala Femina.
Yeah, evil woman.
Evil woman, yeah.
Yeah, he may have recorded Volare. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, who knows? Real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a dear friend of mine. You recorded a song with him, Dave Damiani and the No Vacancy Orchestra.
Yes.
You guys did a song together called "You Gotta Enjoy Joy."
Yeah, to make a long story short, I was on the Milton Berle show, and that was the theme song of the show. You gotta enjoy joy. And Milton Berle wrote the music and lyrics to the song, and he asked me what I recorded. I was with Capitol at the time, and I said, absolutely, Mr. Berle. And we went into Capitol. We had all of the great, LA players, man, and we went in there. And we recorded the song. It never became a hit for me, but I'm very, very proud of the record. And then I became friends with Damiani, and he wanted to do a duet on You Gotta Enjoy Joy. So we did it, and not knowing that, but we also did Sway as well together.
Yeah, we've played that song here a few times. I had Dave on a couple of times.
He's a great guy.
I want to ask you, speaking of that, like a Dave Damiani, Michael Bublé, are you a fan of Mike Bublé?
I love him.
I love him too. Good answer. Good answer, Bobby. Yeah, I love him.
There's always one thing I wanted to do, because his first record that introduced him to the public was Sway. And I always wanted to do, it was a totally different version than mine, but I would love to be able to just go on stage with him and do Sway together. We'd do his version and my version together. I think that would be absolutely tremendous. I've never had the opportunity to meet the man, but, I absolutely adore him. I think he's a marvelous singer, and he seems to be one hell of a sweetheart, too.
Yeah, very nice kid. Very, very nice. He did a Christmas special up until a couple of years ago, and it was like an old variety show feeling-esque to it. You know what I mean? It was beautiful. It was like a family show. They don't have that. There's no crap on now any day.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. I mean, you should try reaching out to him. I mean, maybe he'll go for it.
Oh, I would love to. I have to get my manager to try and see if we can get in touch with him somehow, some way.
Bobby, I want to turn the page a little bit if I can, switch gears. I forgive me up front. But you actually do a great impression of Frankie Fontaine, who appeared on the Jackie Gleason show, because he's a local guy here in Boston. He grew up around here.
Right. I met him. I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Ed McMahon had a show in Philadelphia that went on 5 minutes to 12 at midnight.
Another local guy.
Yeah, the theme song was 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes more, only 5 minutes more, yada, yada, yada. And I did an impersonation of Frank Fontaine. At that time, the character was called John L.C. Savoni. When he was on the Gleason show, of course, it became Crazy Guggenheim. But I've been doing an impersonation of him since I was 10.
You think you can do it?
My nose is a little stuffy right now. I got a little bit of a cold. Let me see, what would he do? Hi, Joe. Hello, Mr. Donahue.
Oh, Mr. Dennehy. Mr.
Yeah,
Dennehy, I
Mr.
hear like,
God.
I think,
And I worked quite a few dates with him up in, I think up in the area, up in the Massachusetts area as well.
Yeah, he grew up right down the street from us.
Yeah.
I believe he died on stage, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, gee, I don't know.
Canada.
I don't know.
Yeah, he had like 10 kids. Yeah. All right. Sorry, a little Frankie Fontaine moment for me. Bobby, the Rydell High in Greece, I mean, did they approach you?
No, not at all. And everybody asked me why. I said,
Right.
what the hell do I know? Could have been Avalon High, although he was in the movie. He was Teen Angel.
Right.
In the movie, Fabian High, Everly High, Presley High, Anchor High. They picked me. What a hell of a tribute. It's great.
Get mud on there.
Mud on Debbie.
Bobby, real quick, I know I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to give you just a name, and you can just give me a quick, brief description about them. George Burns.
My first appearance in Las Vegas was with Mr. Burns at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas, and he would introduce me. I would do 20 minutes, and then he would come on, and then we would do Some of These Days together, and he would sing it like he would sing it, some of these days, and then I would do it like a Bobby Darin type of thing. Some of these days you're gonna miss me, honey. And then we go into a soft shoe together, and it was absolutely marvelous.
Wow!
And I still have pictures of that back then.
Wow, amazing. Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr., we went to see him, my mom, my dad, and my first wife, Camille, God rest her soul, at the old Latin Casino in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And I knew Sammy, and we go backstage and say hello. And Sammy says, Bobby, when are you going to invite me over to your house for some Italian food? I said, Sammy, any night you want to come? He said, I'll be there tomorrow night. He was at my house in South Philadelphia the next night with his conductor, George Rhodes. Now, my grandmother, who came from Abruzzi, she was a marvelous cook, and she cooked lasagna, malagotta, spaghetti, meatballs, and toothpicks, But she didn't know what to make for dessert, so she served watermelon. And Sammy Davis Jr. almost had a heart attack. He was laughing so friggin' hard, man. It was just a marvelous moment,
Yeah, right. Very. I've asked many guests on my show about Sammy, and they always say he was the most humblest, most down-to-earth human being you would ever meet.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Red Skelton.
Red Skelton and I became very, very close. I did 12 shows with Mr. Skelton, and he invited me out to his house in Palm Springs after one of the episodes. And his wife said to me, Bobby, I can count on one hand the number of people that Red has. She called him Big Red, and Red called his wife Little Red. And he invited me out to his house in Palm Springs and flew us in, me and my manager, and flew us out back to L.A. to get, a commercial flight to get back home to Philadelphia. And he was a special person in my life, a real special person.
And this guy, Bobby, is a hit or miss. Joey Bishop.
Oh, my God. Joey and I, he's in South Philadelphia. Well, he was born in Brooklyn, I think, New York. But then he moved to South Philadelphia. And I know, of course, I didn't know Joey growing up as a kid. But I did his show, the Joey Bishop Show, which was a big major hit for him, Yes. And he was always, and I stayed at his home in L.A., and, it was like hanging around, with a guy from the corner again, just hanging out in South Philadelphia. And he was always marvelous. He was always, and I remember he was filling in for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. And he told the producer, he said, who would you like? He said, I want Bobby Rydell on the show. And the producer said, you can't have him. He said, well, if I can't have Bobby Rydell, I don't want to do the show, because I had done, a lot of Skelton shows at that time, and it was like something that was back and forth where, he did too many of these, it's taking away from our audience. So anyway, make a long story short, I did the Tonight Show with Joey because he wanted me on the show.
Oh wow, yeah. He. There's a story. I mean, I know you told it, but the gentleman's name I forget. Guy, the guy
Oh,
who
Guy
played the
Marks.
sidekick. Yeah. He got fired.
Oh, Guy Marks was one hell of a funny guy in South Philadelphia, man. He was originally on the Bishop show, but he kind of took the spotlight away from Joey. And Joey had to let him go, and they hired Corbett Monica, who I've worked with many times in the past, but Guy Marks was just, taking the stage away from Joey. So, Joey said, this is my show. And he just, he let Guy Marks go.
Yeah. A lot of guys like that. Sid Caesar was the same way, I heard. If you got more laughs than him, you were fired. He threw you off the show.
I don't know. I've never had the opportunity to meet him. Yeah.
Bobby, you're a 19-year-old kid. Most kids at 19, they're dealing with, having a hard time meeting girls. They're in college. You had girls screaming, literally passing out in the aisles. I mean, has Bobby Rydell ever worked a day in his life?
No, never had a job. Never had a job.
Yeah, that's amazing. You never really, because you always loved what you were doing. I mean, not too many people can say that.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Bobby, real quick, the book came out. The book came out, I believe, a couple years ago.
Correct.
You talk about second chances. There is it hasn't always been roses and lollipops for you.
Not at all. Not at all.
You really did got a second chance in life.
For sure, yeah. Back in 2012, I had a liver and a kidney transplant because when my first wife passed away, we were married for 36 years, and I lost a very dear friend. There was nobody to talk to, nobody to laugh with, nobody to cry with, nobody to have sex with, so on and so forth. And I turned to the bottle, and I became an alcoholic. And I remember there was a doctor at a hospital here in Philadelphia. He said, if you don't stop drinking, Bob, he said, you're going to be dead in 2 years. That was 2010. And he was right on the money because 2012, I had a liver and a kidney transplant. And that was all because of a young girl by the name of Julia, who was only 20 years old at the time, got hit by a car. And she happened to be the same blood type as me. And we got a call from a hospital here in Philly called Jefferson, and they said, get your ass over here. And I went in, and I had a surgeon who was Italian. His name was Cataldo Doria. We called him Aldo. And he was the one who put my liver and my kidney in. And to this day, we're still very, very dear friends. And I try to impress upon the people how important it is to become an organ donor. Because, as I say on stage, it truly is the gift of life.
Amen. Amen.
Amen is right.
That's a great story, Bobby. And you're one of the giants in the industry, Bobby. And you've done it all in your career. Is there anything you regret that you didn't do in your career?
There was one, if you remember, a show called "They're Playing Our Song." And this is quite a few years ago, and it was a Neil Simon play, and I was suggested to Neil Simon for the part, and oh my God, who's the comedian on the ship on Robert Klein? Robert Klein
yes.
was in the show with Lucy Arnaz, Lucille Ball's daughter, and Anna White, who was the choreographer, Bye Birdie, said to Neil Simon, "There's only one guy who could take his Robert Klein's part, and that's Bobby Rydell." So I went to see the show in New York City, and I fell asleep. And because all I heard was Robert Klein doing one song, they're playing on a song, and I said, that's it, and they wouldn't guarantee that the show would play on Broadway. In other words, it would have been, traveling around Detroit, Chicago, so on and so forth. And I turned it down. And I think that was a wrong move, because if I would have taken it, Neil Simon would probably say, hey, this kid ain't too bad. Maybe I could use him more on my movies. So that's one thing I totally regret.
Wow. Wow, amazing, great story. But I mean, but obviously you got an amazing resume, and you are you're an inspiration to a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of Italian Americans out there, and thank you for what you're doing, and keep doing what you're doing. Now, real quick, I mean, obviously when this crap goes away, I mean, you're still on the tours. You still about the Frankie Avalon and Fabian.
Oh yeah, we still do that show, The Golden Boys, and of course I do my own thing. I do my own, solo shows as well. But things have been canceled, postponed. Wonder how we're going to get back again. It's up in the air. We really don't know.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. But Bobby, I thank you for your time, and I thank you so much for your time. Please give my best to Linda, and God bless you, and thank you so much for your time, Bobby, and continued success. And you are an inspiration, my man.
Thank you very so much, Mike. State buono per Gendan.
Yeah, pure tu. State buono.
Pure tu italiano.
Ciao, ci vediamo.
Ci vediamo, grazie.
All right, guys, thank you for listening. If you like this interview, please click the subscribe button for me. And be sure to listen to the many other interviews on this channel, like our famous Hollywood murder mysteries, celebrity interviews, and mini reels.